Welcome to our next Level 3 Trigonometry video. We're now going to talk about our vertical shift. So far, as we've introduced trigonometry into Level 3, we've been focused on the trigonometric graphs, the sine, the cosine, and the tangent graphs. In the last video, we talked about this word amplitude. So our example, one of the examples from our last video, y equal to 3 sine x, showed us that this sine graph had an amplitude of 3, which is the number out the front of the sine or the cosine or the tan. We looked at this in our last video when we had sine x, 2 sine x, 3 sine x, or 2.6 sine x, that they all started at 0, 0. They all had the same period, which was 2 pi, but they just had different heights or amplitudes in the graph. And one thing to be mindful from our last video, when we have y equal to 2 sine x and y equal to negative 2 sine x, they have the same amplitude, but they are just reflections or mirror images of each other. Right, well, let's get into this video and talk about a vertical shift. So here's our first example, y equal to sine x plus 3. Well, here's what the graph looks like. And hopefully you can visualize and see that the graph has moved up vertically 3 squares, which is what this plus 3 does. The whole graph has been pushed up 3 squares. Now also be mindful that this graph still has an amplitude of just 1. The number out the front of the sine x is the amplitude. Now, if there is no number out the front, you know straight away that it's 1, which means it's got an amplitude of 1. So this graph has got an amplitude of 1, and it's moved, all of the graph has moved 3 squares up on the y-axis. Right, well, here's our second example. Y equal to 2.5 cosine x subtract 1. Well, here's what the graph would look like. And I hope you can visualize and see that the whole graph has dropped 1 square. Some people think of it like the x-axis has moved down 1 square. And that's what the negative 1 here, subtract 1, means. The whole graph has come down 1 on the y-axis. Now, be mindful that this graph has got an amplitude of 2.5 squares. So this graph has got an amplitude of 2.5 squares, and the whole graph has dropped down 1 on the y-axis. Right, well, that's pretty much it. So far what we've talked about in this video and in our last video, the number out the front of the sine, cosine, or tan represents the amplitude. And when we plus or minus a number which we're going to call D, at the end, we move the graph in a vertical direction, up and down. If we plus 2, the whole graph goes up 2. If we subtract 3, the whole graph comes down 3. Cool, thanks for watching.